Houston Cougars, a furious comeback to knock off Duke and advance to the national championship game.
Here is Zion Chris, big hole, open sesame. Zion Chris, wow, the 72-yard house call.
Stick it in your pipe and smoke it, baby. Yes!
Welcome to Scott Home Podcast, Summer Edition. If you've listened to us for a few years now, you know, even here in July, the month where no Cougar sports ever happens, unfortunately, for those of us who live and die by the Cougars here on this podcast, we know the work here never stops. And we got a main segment I'm really excited to talk about here tonight. I was about to say, not spoil it, but with my co-hosts here, because I have a voice you're about to hear. You might know him from approximately 500 something episodes of the Scott Holland podcast. Joining us for, I think it's going to be a really fun main segment tonight. Going to be a little trip down memory lane as we pick our all Sampson team lineups drafted between each other, which I know we're all three very excited to do. Talking some Cougar offseason stuff as well. Dustin, don't get a chance to talk to you in this format as often. How are you doing, friend?
Doing great, man. It's been good to get to talk to you all a little bit more recently. We've been coming on for some off-season episodes. Got at least one more episode in a couple weeks here that I'll be back here on. So feeling like a semi-regular host of this podcast again, but excited to be talking to you guys. Excited to try out a new idea for the first time that I know all three of us probably have been spending a lot of time, prepping for. So excited to play this one out and see how it goes.
And Bobby, you're here too.
I am here. I as per usual when when I was initiated as the third host. I'm here. I am I'm here to provide a little levity at times. But yeah, no, everything's good here. So
you swore a blood oath to talk about the Cougs with us, and we're glad we don't have to repay whatever horrible things we called in to make that happen. Also, because we don't share the visual medium on this, Bobby is rocking the is it the third jersey?
No, it was the away jersey.
The away jersey. I knew that sounded wrong. He's rocking the that, what would you call that, like some kind of light teal?
Yeah,
the France away jersey from the World Cup.
Yeah, which is the whole thing. I love the story behind it because it's France's away jersey and it's the color of the Statue of Liberty in the 250th year. And so they gave us the Statue of Liberty. Those of you who, for some reason, didn't know that, go Cougs, who didn't know that.
You learn something every time you listen to this podcast.
Yeah, that's look, if you got the degree and you don't know that, that says a lot about our great university. But yeah, I just think it's a really cool story. And so I bought it. I think it's pretty cool.
And of course, before we get to our topics on offer tonight, we'll say, as I always do at the top, if you like the work that Bobby and I do on a weekly basis, occasionally with our good friend and longtime co-host of this podcast here, Dustin, and you do not do so already, you could support us by going to patreon.com/shpodcast. We'd really appreciate that. And we'd really appreciate a 5-star review that costs you exactly $0 wherever you listen to podcasts. That genuinely does help get us out there and helps Cougs find the work that we do here, talking about our fair university and its athletic teams. So before we get to our main topic, a couple of kind of off-season-y news items, considering this is late July and we're not even in the preseason practice portion of the season for the fall sports coming, though thankfully not too far on the horizon for all that. But I would say relevant news would be the Big 12 football media days held up in Frisco at the Dallas Cowboys Star facility. Worthy of kicking around. I would say at least one U of H thing and some broader things that intersect with U of H here from that. In my opinion, the most headline grabbing item from this year's media days weren't specific to Cougar football, which, and frankly, not a bad thing, really. I feel like normally if you're the big news story at this point in the year, it's probably not for the best. And I would say the biggest headline grabber from this event specifically was the Big 12 announcing Monster Energy. And I'm directly quoting from their release here, is the quote, entitlement partner of the football and basketball regular seasons. And I'd missed this happening or forgotten it, but apparently this builds on an existing relationship between Monster Energy and the conference. I believe they were previously the quote official energy drink of the Big 12. I mean, I think the biggest talking point around this deal was less that the partnership existed in the first place and more that the reported monetary total of it is $20 million plus Monster covering the cost of any uniform and court sponsorships, which at the most surface level, $20 million, I am not a wealthy enough man that $20 million when I see it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but you subdivide that between 16 member institutions and assume that the conference itself is taking at least some off the top. The conversation has shifted a little bit. Bobby, throw it to you first. What are your thoughts on all this? But first, tell me and the listeners, what was the last flavor of Monster Energy drink that you drank, and roughly when was the last time you had a Monster Energy drink of some kind?
Yeah, so the last one, I'm an OG guy. I don't need all the flavors. I just give me the alien piss flavor, right straight to the dome. It's actually been a while since I've actually had a Monster. But sometimes I do just get the craving for like an energy drink for some reason. Like I don't even necessarily need the energy. I'm just like, I kind of want that flavor, which is a weird kind of thing to have. But when I do get an energy drink, even before this, it is usually a Monster because I think it tastes better than Red Bull. But yeah, I will. I'll go Monster there. My initial thought was, man, that seems pretty cheap. Great deal for Monster. I think in my like second thought was, boy, can't wait to see how BYU handles this one. And then my third thought was,
Didn't even think about that. Yeah.
and then my third thought was, when I kind of learned a little bit more about it, was that Monster is insisting the logo be green on all the uniforms. And like, for a brand that has 5 million can colors, like, wouldn't it be kind of cool to specialize it and create different can colors or something like that for the different institutions? Like, if you could create a Houston blue emblem, and like, as somebody who doesn't love Houston blue, right? If you gave us the Houston blue patch with the Monster lines and the Big 12 logo on it, like, I'm cool with that. I think Houston blue looks great as like a trim color, but I just think if you could have a red Monster for like West Virginia, if you could have the yellow logo, or an orange for Oklahoma State, so it doesn't. That was kind of the weird part to me. I do think they got it pretty cheap. The fact that you're getting the logos on the best basketball conference in the country and probably the third best football conference in the country, you can make the argument with the ACC for $20 million, and we're going on the turf. Like, that's a pretty good deal. But also you have to realize that it's not going to take up regular jersey sponsors from schools that have it. And also the schools had to sign off for this. This isn't like your mark was like, yeah, sure, we're just going to do this. And West Virginia, you're going to have to deal with it. Your athletic department can figure it out. Like, the ADs signed off on this. So clearly the ADs are in negotiations with jersey sponsors, or at least you're hoping they are. And they know that that's something that it's just an additional piece of revenue. So I think, like you said, Sam, some of the conversation has kind of come back to it. Like, maybe it's not as bad as we think when you first hear the initial. But my initial thought was like, man, I really wish it wasn't green. That's going to kind of be an eyesore as somebody who likes uniforms and just what's classic looking uniforms. I think it would be a really cool branding thing to be able to brand it with your school, that kind of stuff. But beggars and choosers, that whole conversation there.
Yeah, personally, I'm kind of with you on the green thing. That does seem strange. Like, if you're a company that has that many different can colors, why not just try to find something that works a little bit better with each individual school? But on the money thing, my initial gut reaction was kind of like, that doesn't seem like a lot. And then I did read, I believe it was Matt Brown at what's the name of
Extra Points.
Extra Points. Thank you. Yeah, had a good piece about it, and I've kind of come around on that. And yeah, and kind of like Bobby said, I think all the ADs are signing off on this. All the ADs know what they can get for jersey sponsorships because they've already been down that road, certainly. So the fact that they all think it's a good deal, yeah, I mean, it's I mean, like, $1 million U of H as an athletic department, also not so rich that $1 million a year is nothing to us. Like, I'm sure that Eddie Nunez is happy to have that extra $1 million a year, give or take whatever it ends up being. So, the fact that it doesn't stop U of H from getting other, patches on jerseys, which we'll probably see. shirts, a logo on a field, on a court or on a field, like those don't already have courts, have logos already on them. I just feel like once the games start, we're barely going to notice it that much, other than maybe the occasional, like, yeah, I wish that wasn't a green logo on our, red jersey or whatever. But if it's something that I feel like is going to kind of fade into the background fairly quickly, then heck yeah, if you get $1 million a year for that, why not? I guess Monster's hoping this doesn't fade into the background. I guess that's the whole idea that they're trying to go for here. But I feel like for me, I'm gonna look past it very quickly. And if it's another mill for U of H, sure, sounds good.
Yeah, classic
Agreed.
July story. The thing I've seen it, and I'm glad you mentioned the Matt Brown thing, Dustin, because that kind of got me to where I am now. Is like I've seen favorable comparisons to what schools are getting for their patches, and you got to think like, okay, yes, people generally like know the Big 12, but it's less valuable. Like people have less brand affinity, to use kind of a buzzwordy thing, to like, oh, it's the Big 12 drink, as opposed to it's the one sponsoring my school of fandom, my team. So yeah, of course, the Kansas whatever jersey patch is going to have less value than a Big 12 wide sponsorship thing. And yeah, I don't know exactly also what it's going to look like either, like how big the patch is going to be. Like it's not, I would assume they're not going to slap like a 6-inch patch on the jerseys, but also co-sign. Like, yeah, it's a little weird. Like, as a brand, Monster is obviously not dogmatic about, well, we only have the black and neon green can here. Like it's basically, I would guess every color a Big 12 school has, Monster has a color or a drink currently on the shelves of some store near us that could be like UCF's, or it could be Oklahoma State's, or it could be Colorado's, go on down the list. A little lighter, the other thing to come out of Big 12 media takes was a Texas Tech radio personality asking a question during Brett Yormark's media availability on day one of the event, which I will splice the audio of.
Calling it a question is a little generous.
Bogart, a Texas Tech a radio personality, bogarted the microphone, and his pronunciation of tortillas will surprise and delight you. So give that a listen.
Stand up. Ask that question again, and I'm going to give you the answer I want to give you. So go ahead.
Texas Tech got fined for tuh-tiyas, and tortillas were banned outright. OSU has had paddles that were given a noisemaker exemption back in 2012. Sorsby never played a snap for the Red Raiders, and yet there's a lawsuit. Cincinnati has yet to be touched. You're selling greater than 12. Why should Texas Tech fans believe them?
No, I didn't say greater than 12. You misquoted me. I said we're going forward as 16 strong, and that's my answer to your question. But thank you for that question. Appreciate it.
Gotta say, Tech isn't sending their best embrace these things, clearly. All-time mispronunciation of the word tortillas. Not a word that you would think any Texan or someone who's lived in Texas for any period of time,
or a school that specializes in throwing them,
or a school that makes the tortillas a shockingly large part of their fan identity, mispronounced, but every new day presents delights to all of us. To me, that's the peril of inviting fan media to this kind of event. Not that fan media probably describes like what we do here, so I'm not trying to be a snob about it. And not that I believe everyone at this event should be a capital J journalist, but we're a fan podcast, and our credentialed appearances at Big 12 Media Days, as you've done them, Bobby, shout out to you. I don't think I'm giving you too much credit in saying that even in an alternate reality where U of H and Brett Yormark had a more contentious offseason and contentious relationship generally, that you wouldn't have gotten the microphone and asked that whopper of a question. I hope I'm not giving you too much credit here on that one.
No, I probably would not have. Just simply because it's not a good question. Like, if you take everything away, the question itself was not a good question. Like, how can we believe we're strong? We're bigger than 12 or stronger than 12? Like, that's not even the theme going into the season. That was last year's theme. So, like, that's number one. And just as a side note, has a fan base ever gotten a bigger head off one good year of being good at something? Suddenly he's like, what makes you think that we should stay in the Big 12? It's like, brother, because the Big 10's
who's
not
going to take
on your
you?
Door. Yeah, it's not like the Big 10's knocking on your door. You're ranked like 198th college-wise. You would be the worst-rated Big Ten school.
They all said they were going to boycott scheduling you because you tried to play your problem gambler QB transfer until you decided not to.
Yeah, and then and so for me, the question itself just didn't fit the theme of the year that they're trying to promote. Now, I will say, I do think Yormark saying stand up and say it, kind of funny, but at the same time, Yormark had to know he was going to get asked something like this. So, while it is funny, I don't love that he's it was almost like he wanted to avoid that conversation during the media days, and you're kind of like, you had to know the question was coming a little bit. Maybe it wasn't the best way to handle it, but at the end of the day, what a stupid question it was. Just overall, just a bad question, 100%. And I will say, full to what you said, Sam, not a capital. We are a fan podcast. I definitely got looks last year when I totally forgot where I was and I threw up the Cougar Paw and sang along with the fight song. Definitely got some looks about that last year. So don't want to, glass houses and stones, whatever that is, however you want to say that. But yeah, I absolutely did that. But I also didn't ask Yormark, hey man, how come you're not paying attention to us? It's just such a bad question, bad look overall, I think both sides. I think the reporter, you saw the picture where the guys have, the other reporters behind them have their head in their hands, and it's just and I think I tweeted it out and said, this is what it looks like when other fan bases, when they see that stupid cactus pop up on their timeline. It's oh God, here we go again. So bad look overall, just, It became the topic of discussion at a media day in which it seemed everybody wanted to be past that. Even Texas Tech and their coaches and their staff and their PR people looked like they were ready to move past it. Outside of we hadn't even played them a down, but we also knew you were going to. You could just tell everyone wanted to move on. And it's just this woe is me by their fan base. How could they be so mean to me? And it's because you guys suck. Nobody likes you guys right now.
I maintain it wasn't. You're calling it a bad question. I genuinely maintain it wasn't a question. I mean, technically there was, but it was. Fair point. He aired a list of grievances that he had that he wanted to bitch at Yormark about, and then he was like, "Wait, what? I need to say something that ends in a question mark here, so that he'll theoretically start talking, right?" And Yormark did the stand up and say a thing. The funniest thing to me was, clearly the how are we supposed to believe that it was 16 whatever. Like I said, irrelevant to what he was trying to do. He was just throwing some words together after he said all the grievances. And the funny thing to me was that Yormark then completely ignored the entire actual meaning of what the guy was saying, and it was just you misquoted me on that, on the whatever his stupid question was at the end. So that was the funny part to me. It was Yormark completely being I'm going to ignore 100% of the substance of what you are up here. You took our tortillas, but this other thing that was not the same, you did something else. And then you told us we couldn't have the player who gambled, but then in some completely unrelated other context, you did a different thing. Which is very funny, because that's just been the Tech way of handling this, is the number. And again, and I don't really go on the former Bird app anymore. I don't really come into contact with too many Tech fans online, and yet I still am aware of this.
Your reality's better for it, trust me.
This persistent, just this other player sued the NCAA. Yeah, for an extra year of eligibility because he was a JUCO player, and some other guys got it. You guys cannot. You're not going to make this the same as we tried to put a player on the field who had gambled on his team. It's just there are no other comparisons to them. They kept trying. Well, what about this other? It's just not the same. And
I love now they're going after Cincinnati. They're well, they knew he gambled, and it's okay, then Cincinnati should get in trouble too. That doesn't mean
right. But yeah, no, I think like I said, it seemed like everyone in the Tech land is past it. And hopefully this is the last time anyone has to talk about it, and we can all move on and hopefully beat those guys on the field when the season starts.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add, Bobby, I mean, there might be a reality where you could frame some of their assorted grievances into a legit question. I think it was a snotty response, and it was a deserved snotty response, honestly, to the question. If you found a way to ask that as a genuine question, he gave it the same treatment. Okay, yeah, at least you're in front of the podium, and answer the question. But you said it wasn't even a question, so it got exactly the response it deserved. The one notable U of H thing here, I'll say again, grateful that U of H's storyline coming out of this is based just, they're an interesting like dark horse to potentially win the league, and I believe fourth in the whatever we're calling the media thing post Big 12 media days for the football preseason. But Willie Fritz was asked during his media availability about having 2 5-star quarterbacks, and I will put the audio of his answer to that question here.
Connor's our starting quarterback without question. And what's been really neat is I've never had 2 5-star quarterbacks before. Any place I've ever been at, I've never had one, much less 2. Those guys are both so unselfish. Everybody keeps asking me what kind of package you're going to run with Keyshawn. We're going to run our total package with him. He's really smart, can throw and run the ball. So those guys really, really work well together in the quarterback room, and I think it's a perfect situation for Keyshawn to be in there and learn from not only great coaches but a fellow great player in Connor.
I don't think you can or should do any kind of serious projection based on an early July quote at conference media days, but he said something almost identical to it today at U of H's media availability thing. Fritz saying what kind of package that we're going to run for Keyshawn as the total package is loud. That certainly doesn't sound like a player who's going to be a minimal part of the offense and a guy who'd be a candidate to redshirt in 2026. Acknowledging that you have an entrenched senior starting quarterback in Connor Wigman, and sharing reps at quarterback is different and more challenging than doing it at basically any other position on the field in football. It doesn't sound like we're going to be only seeing cameo appearances for Henderson in the 2026 season. Time could prove me wrong there, but speaking as somebody who was previously more in the I don't believe we'll see a ton of him next season camp, I've done an about face here, and I think Fritz, rightly or wrongly, I think more rightly, doesn't say a ton controversial or really like, oh wow, he said that like in front of a microphone, that he's going to be this bullish on Keyshawn Henderson. That was the one U of H related thing from these media days that really caught my eye.
Yeah, somebody who was also like, he's going to redshirt, and you have arguably you could make the argument that you have an all-conference quarterback and Connor Wigman here. That definitely opens your eyes a little bit. I think the 5-for-5 rule, where you don't really do a redshirt anymore, is certainly going to play a little bit of a. It's not like you're keeping a year of eligibility now by not redshirting him or something like that. I think that certainly is going to play, or is playing a role here. I think if you're able to keep a year of eligibility, maybe you don't, but you don't need to do that now. Not that I think Keyshawn's long for being a Houston Cougar. I think if he is what you think he is, he's going to be here 3, maybe 4 years. So seems like he's going to get a lot more playing time. I don't love the idea of splitting reps 50-50 or even that, but yeah, I think seeing him more than 4 games, and now it's something, even if you don't necessarily have him come into a game or something like that, like now teams have to at least plan for it, right? And so I think that's wildly different than what we may have seen pre 5-for-5 and things like that. So I do think it has it does change quite a bit, but I also am a little not skeptical. That's not the word to say. That has like a negative. I'll believe it when I see him out there quite a bit, because I do think if you're gonna go give Keyshawn a lot of reps, then I think Connor would have looked elsewhere if that was the case. So I think the 5-for-5 certainly changes things, and I think we'll see him more than I probably thought, but I don't think it's going to magically become this massive split reps or something like that.
Yeah, my opinion of how much I expect to see Keyshawn on the field didn't change too much with that quote. Kind of my read of what that quote meant to me was Willie Fritz saying essentially like he's our backup quarterback, right? We're not teaching him a couple of sets here and there. We're not teaching him a couple gadget plays. We're teaching him the offense because he's our next quarterback, and he this season is our backup quarterback, right? So what maybe that means he gets a drive a game or something. Well, we'll see what that actually means in terms of his playing time. But kind of like you, Bobby, I don't think you don't bring back a quarterback who was responsible for 36 touchdowns and led you to 10 wins if you're expecting him to like split reps or something. That doesn't make any sense to me. I think my expectation is still Connor Wegman is the starting quarterback this year. Keyshawn Henderson is a backup quarterback going into 2027. Keyshawn Henderson is the starting quarterback. That's kind of how I still see that. But I like what I took from that was that I like Willie Fritz's confidence in Keyshawn Henderson and the fact that he's picking up the offense, right? As much as other teams weren't offering him as a quarterback, and you go, okay, is he more of an athlete than a quarterback? But that to me was Willie Fritz confidently saying, no, he's not a gadget quarterback. We're not gonna teach him a little bit of the offense here and then and then teach him the rest of the. No, we're gonna teach him the offense. We expect him to learn the offense the way how the other quarterbacks learn in the offense, and that's what we see him as. So I'm excited for that, and whether that means a drive a game or whether that means a couple quarters against some of the lesser teams. If we're ahead comfortably, whatever that may be, I don't know, but. I'm excited for Connor Wegman this year. I'm excited for Keyshawn Henderson going forward. Houston's quarterback room, we don't have to overthink it. We just get to be really excited for watching a couple of really talented guys for the next few years.
Yeah, and just kind of real quick, that actually with the 5 for 5 and you not needing to preserve a red shirt, now you can give him a drive a game. You can give, now he can play in 10 of the 12 games, one that's not close or something like that. You don't have to be strategic in the games in which you play him. And hey, look, we're thinking we're going to play him in this game because we're playing so-and-so. And there's a good chance that we are not that coaches necessarily think like, oh, we're going to go out and absolutely dog walk this Big 12 team. But like looking back to like Oklahoma State last year, going into that game, you were pretty confident that if you did have a 5-star quarterback, maybe we'll get to play him a little bit later or something like that. So now with the 5 for 5, you're not going to necessarily have to be worried about that. You can just go, hey, we're up 21 here. Go, Keyshawn. Let's go have fun and go play the fourth quarter for us.
And we'll get to our main segment here tonight. One that, as you mentioned at the top, very excited to talk about. One that was the brainchild of our co-host emeritus here. So Dustin, tell us what and the listeners what we're about to be doing.
Yeah, we're going to do a fantasy draft of Kevin Sampson era U of H men's basketball players. We're each going to put together an 8-man rotation. I feel like everyone's going to think I ripped this off from like 82and0.com when everyone was doing that for like a couple weeks there. I swear the idea came before that.
Yes, we can verify that.
This was like early to mid spring when we were kind of like, okay, what are we doing for the off season?
I was like, hey, I have an idea. Let's just do a fantasy draft. We'll each draft our 8-man rotation, and then we can kind of argue who has the best team. The listeners can chime in who they think has the best team. So that's it. We're going to each draft. Like I said, once one of us drafts a guy, he's off the board. So we're each going to draft a 5-man starting lineup: point guard, couple wings, couple bigs, and then probably a couple guards and a big off the bench. And yeah, you the listener, hopefully you're feeling like you're giving us some feedback, because that I think is the fun of this, is people arguing, who would you have taken at this pick? Who would you, who ended up with the best team and why? So I'm excited to see. Because I thought I was going to have kind of like everybody just here's my like 1 through however many, but I ended up doing it just like different lists for each position. So I'm excited to see, what the differences is in between, who would you take here, who would you take there, and kind of discussing that and having this just be one big exercise in remembering some guys that have come through this program over the last decade plus under Kevin Sampson. So eligibility, anyone who's played at least 1 season under Kevin Sampson is eligible. So that's I think that's it.
Yeah, I thought part of the fun of it also, now that I've made my like quote unquote draft board here, was some. I mean, I don't think our lineup restrictions are that difficult, but hey, like thinking like, well, I'm not going to draft 5 point guards here. Like, don't get me wrong, I'd love to see what a Galen Robinson, Kingston Flemings, and Deke Giroux lineup would look like here, but
we now know Sam's guards. We now know his top 3 guards, Dustin. We know who he's taking.
Damn, I tipped my hand there. But to look at like positions and prioritizing that was an interesting wrinkle of it that I didn't expect before, that I kind of noticed as I was putting my thoughts together on this. We're doing a snake draft here, 1 through 3. Dustin, you get the first pick, and I would say it's an advantage for getting the first player off the board, though obviously the snake draft, it is, I would very much be patting myself on the back, and I guess Bobby patting himself on the back too much by saying we gave you that much of the first pick. But you were first up, I'm second, Bobby's third. Whenever you're ready. I don't know if the NBA draft has a little jingle the same way that do like the NFL draft does, but I guess you could consider yourself now. Yeah, because they're both ESPN, yeah. You're now on the clock, buddy.
All right. Well, I was expecting us to do some like random selection. Then y'all were like, no, it's your idea. You can have the first pick. And I really had an emotional roller coaster on it. Because at first I was like, I don't want to be like, I play a lot of like board games and stuff. I always have a little app on my phone for selecting random. I'm like, we're going to do something random. And then I was like, you know what? I'm not even sure it's an advantage. So you know what? I'll take it because I'm not even sure it's an advantage. And then I came all the way back around to actually, this whole thing is going to be difficult as hell. And like the one thing I'm sure about is who I want to take with the first overall pick. So actually, I'm back to appreciating that y'all forced that upon me. So it's been a whole journey. I've done the whole 360, but I'm back around. And man, just like, again, looking at the position, trying to do position rankings was so hard. I ended up leaning more stats-wise into this than I thought I would, just because I needed to find some way to kind of differentiate all these players that I love. But ultimately for me, there was only one player I could take with the number 1 overall pick in this draft, and that is one Mr. Jamal Shead at the point guard position. As much as we've seen so many great players, I think he should be the first player to have his jersey number retired from the Kevin Sampson era. And just, in terms of a player, highest assist rate of any point guard, of any of the many great point guards that have come through under Kevin Sampson, could also get his shot, especially by the end of his career. Incredible defender, highest steal rate, and just incredible defender, D'ing guys up. So as much as there's so many good picks here, and even when it comes back around to me with the 6th overall pick, going to be so many good players on the board to choose from, but number 1 overall, ultimate winner, ultimate leadership intangibles, and ultimate production on the court, Jamal Shead, number 1.
He was top of my board. I have a positionless board of just like 1 through 20 something of guys I was going to take here. Jamal Shead was my number 1. As excited as I'm going to be to tell you who I'm picking next, I was hoping against hope that he would slip to me here with the 2nd overall pick, but no surprise. And yeah, I really think obviously you build out from a point guard if you're looking for a basketball team, and there have been so many great point guards come to this program under Kevin Sampson, but I don't think you can make an argument against Jamal Shead being the best of this era there. So with my 2nd pick here, I'm going with Quentin Grimes. To your Cougars, you'll remember listening, played in the 2019-20 and 2021 seasons. There has been no more gifted scorer to come through this program, I would say even to the present time, than Quentin Grimes. And I loved his story. This wasn't why I picked him, but I loved his story too, as someone who came out, was like all-world recruit coming out of high school, was in a stratosphere recruit that U of H at the time is an American Athletic Conference program. He wasn't considering U of H, and that he came here and found that ability that made him a McDonald's All-American, was the first post-Phi Slamma Jamma All-American in this program. I don't think it's a coincidence that Quentin Grimes in his junior season led this program to its first Final Four since Phi Slamma Jamma as well. Has shown himself to be a gifted pro. After the fact, though, again, I didn't really factor that specifically into my pick. Unbelievable scorer, unbelievable defender. Truly one of I would say one of the best small handful of players to come to this program under Kevin Sampson. And I knew if I didn't get a miracle of Jamal Shead somehow being here on the board at pick number 2, that I was going to have to go with Q here. So my pick here is Quentin Grimes. He's going to be one of my wings.
Strong pick. I broke out my guard. I had kind of point guard, combo guard, and like rebounding wing. And Quentin Grimes, as much as rebounding wing is an insanely competitive category, Quentin Grimes was at the top of my board in that position, and not really too much question there. I don't think.
Yep. Same here. So with the 3rd pick, I am going as the president of this guy's fan club. Any listener of this podcast knows I had no choice but to go with Wani Roberts as the number 3 pick. Probably a bit of a reach. Maybe you could get a guard here, but go ahead and give me Wani. When you look at what he did, the Final Four team, he did everything that you could possibly want out of your big. Biggest game of your career, and you need someone to lock down a generational talent on the final shot in Cooper Flagg. Who are you going to put him on? Wani Roberts. Hey, you need a play where you just need a bucket, especially that final year. He was just a bucket guy. Final seconds of the game, you saw it a bunch of times. So I'm going with Wani there, and I'm going to put him in the 5. And then I Since it's a snake draft, it comes back to me. So with the 4th pick, the first pick of the 2nd round. Now, this is probably going to be the biggest reach of this draft, but what they say is when your guy is there, you have to take your guy. Like, yes, you could trade down and you could try something like that, but that's not an option here. And my guy's on the board, and I'm taking Fabian White. I'm taking my 2 favorite Houston Cougar basketball players, probably since I've been a fan. Give me my 2 guys. Fabian White, one of the best stories. He tears his ACL. He's a guy who does a lot of really good things, tears his ACL, comes back, and suddenly can shoot almost lights out. Like, his offensive game that year where he had an ACL tear, you saw the video of him shooting free throws from a chair, and you just saw his offensive game take another step forward. That kind of grit, that kind of determination just screams Kevin Sampson to me. He's got one of my favorite memories in the NCAA tournament, that diving save where he's like fully extended in the NCAA tournament and he saves the ball in a really big game for the
round of 32 against Illinois, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
So fully admit here, probably way too high, but I'm taking my 2 favorite Cougar players, and I got the bigs locked down. Y'all can have everyone else. You give me Wani, you give me Fabian. I can find guards somewhere else here, but our defense is going to be good, and the grit and determination just cannot be beat with those 2.
Yeah, I honestly kind of like the strategy. The U of H is more guard heavy over this period, so locking down the forwards you want, even though I think Wani's played a lot of the 5, but maybe not a traditionally sized 5. You're not gonna have a lot of size in your front court, but that's a pretty good, pretty strong front court in terms of rebounding and just guys who have won a lot of games at U of H.
Yeah, your offensive rebounding is going to be absurd with guys.
I can just get bucket getters who just jack up threes and just go get the ball, Wani. Go get it, Fabian.
So I couldn't get to this point and not address the point guard position, and with everyone but Jamal Shed to choose from, which is still even acknowledging how unbelievable Jamal Shed was for this program, I'm going Kingston Flemings as my point guard, and that you have a guy, and not that I'm not going to give him his shine here, but we've talked so much about him. Just one of the best scorers we've seen come through this program, distributor as well, like unbelievable defender. To see a freshman do what Kevin Sampson requires of his point guards, which is an unbelievable amount. Like that, there's that quote that always gets trotted out of his that there are only 3 people that can't have a bad practice: the head coach, the point guard, and the best player. Generally, freshmen have bad practices. Generally, freshmen aren't that kind of unbelievable, consistent entity, and that's just what Kingston was to this program. And I'm feeling pretty good with the backcourt of Flemings and Grimes so far, guys. Like that's 2 elite scorers right there. Again, not factoring in NBA stuff in there too. 2 guys who ended up being first-round picks as well, and in Grimes' case, had a nice career. So feeling pretty good about that. Kingston Flemings will be my starting point guard.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and take my number 1 combo guard still on the board. So I've got to take a Marcus Sasser. A Marcus Sasser, Jamal Shed backcourt's one I'm feeling pretty good about. There's such a deep combo guard group there. I almost feel like I should wait until I can just take somebody, with a later pick. But I don't know if anyone was as good of a scorer, as efficient of a scorer, as good of a creator for his teammates, as good of a defensive player as Marcus Sasser was. He was someone, man, at the absolute peak of his U of H career, about as good of a player as we've seen come through this program. There's lots of guys who are probably on that same level with him, but I don't know if there's anyone that's really above him on that level. So really good player, absolutely, clutch as you could want, does everything you want him to do on the court. Another coach on the court with Jamal in the backcourt there. So feeling pretty good about a backcourt of Jamal Shed and Marcus Sasser to get started here. And then, I'm sorry, do you want to y'all have some Marcus Sasser that's before? I'm still kind of mulling over who my next pick is here. So if y'all have more thoughts.
Yeah, Sasser was probably the guy who, instead of Fabian, I really kind of was like, that would be a fun one that you guys went a little guard heavy, and I could be like, hey, wait a minute, I got my bigs. Maybe Sasser falls a little bit. It didn't happen. I didn't expect it to, but just in case it did, I was peeking pretty hard at that one. So Marcus Sasser, another one of my favorite Houston Cougars to don the red and white.
Yeah, all American. I think the fact that he immediately followed Grimes, I wouldn't say overshadows him because that's the wrong word. Marcus Sasser is obviously a very appreciated player in this program. But I think sometimes, like when I was doing my research for this, I was just like, oh yeah, like Marcus Sasser, his last year in college was like unbelievable, and just another like unreal development story of the Kelvin Sampson program. Came in as a 3-star and left as a All-American and first-round draft pick.
All right, and then with my other pick, I finally got as much as there's so many tempting guards that I have a hard time looking away from, I got to finally take a big here. So this is maybe my reach pick, but this is one of the ones looking over the numbers that I was like, this guy shot up my draft board much more than I thought he was going to. So in terms of a pure 5, this guy actually ended up being my highest rated pure 5.
I know you're going to take it. I'm just like, I was hoping this guy would fall to me.
That is Josh Carlton. Josh Carlton, if you look at guys who played the pure 5, highest scoring average in a season, 11.6 points per game in a season, extremely efficient, almost a 63% effective field goal percentage, still an unbelievable rebounder. His 17.2 rebounding rate, offensive rebounding rate, highest of any player I had on the board at any position. Good defensive rebounder too, good defensive player too. Not quite the insane shot blocker that JoJo and Javier and Chris Harris have been, but still a very good defensive center though. So, lots of guys that I think kind of have in that, mid 4-5 range that U of H has got some guys you could play probably at either of those positions, like Wani, who Bobby took, some other guys that are going to come off the board eventually. But in terms of just a pure 5 to anchor my post, ended up with Josh Carlton here.
Yeah, I think maybe the most underrated Coug of the Kelvin Sampson. And part of that's because he played one additional year here at the end of his college career after playing 4 years at UConn. But I remember coming in, it was like, oh, okay. Like it was the point where we kind of, if Kelvin's bringing a guy in, we kind of take it on faith that he knows what he's doing here, but didn't really have a decorated UConn career. And I think one of the biggest reasons why, not just him, because you also had Tajay Moore and Kyler Edwards and Jamal Shedd really coming into his own his sophomore season. But in my opinion, the biggest reason why that 21-22 team was able to absorb losing 2 unbelievable guards that season early in Sasser and Tremont Mark was that you had Josh Carlton having by far his best college season that last year. I was hoping I could get him in like the 3rd or 4th round. And not that you guys aren't appreciative of Josh Carlton and what he does, but I was just like, as soon as you started describing like, best 5, I was like, he's off the board, Sam. You're not getting Josh Carlton in your lineup here. So I've kind of, to this point with my 2 picks, ignored the front court. I don't think I can anymore. So I'm going to take what I think is the best guy in the front court who is still on the board here, JoJo Tugler. I will be adding him to my team. Unbelievable shot blocker. Obviously, we're only judging guys on what they've done in their career to this point, but I feel like the starting 5 is going to have a lot of scores in there. I just need JoJo to grab the offensive boards. I just need him to do what he always does and be the center of gravity defensively, really. And you saw it this season. You saw his block rate go down. It was like, this is not because he's gotten 1 iota worse as a shot blocker. If anything, he's probably gotten better. It's just teams now have about 2 seasons of tape. And they're just like, yeah, we're not trying that anymore. Just having him on the court really changes what your opponents can do. And yeah, excited to have him even with an offensive game to this point, which we're judging it on, that has not totally developed yet. The offensive rebound and shot blocking to me is more than enough to have in my front court. So I'm picking JoJo here.
Love the JoJo pick. Another guy, like you said. I think offensively with Grimes and Kingston, I think you're okay with JoJo just playing defense there. For me, at the with my 3rd pick, which is the 9th overall, I think is where we're at. I finally got to go guards here. I am going to take Emmanuel Sharp. Just get down there. I just want you to just nail threes. I need you to post up on the 3-point line. And I need you to just put the ball up and let Wani and Fabian go get it if you miss. So Emmanuel Sharp is just one of those guys who I have loved watching play. He is another one of those gritty guys that you're going to see with Wani, Fabian, just Kelvin Sampson guys. Like, a lot of these guys obviously are Kelvin Sampson guys, but when you think of like, oh, who are the guys who have defined what a Kelvin Sampson guy is, Emmanuel Sharp kind of fits that for me. So I'm going to take Emmanuel Sharp here. And then I do need a point guard here, like a true point guard. And I'm kind of down to 2 guys here but I am going to go with Milo Suzanne here. I thought he's been so much better, not last year, but the year before, when he was kind of playing that point guard position. Is somebody who can distribute, but can also get his shot off. I thought he looked better when he was the main ball handler. You saw that the year before last year, 2 years ago, where he just was the guy who could run that offense. Maybe not when he first came in. I remember our conversation was like, really, this guy? Like, I mean, if Sampson, to what Sam said earlier, like, I guess if Sampson does it, but he just became one of those guys that you just trusted with the ball to distribute the way you kind of wanted it to go there. So yeah, I'm taking Milos and Manuel Sharp here.
I really like the Emmanuel Sharp. I mean, just he's talking about having him bomb all the shots, but also being just absolute lockdown defender as well. You're going to put him on the other team's best guard and know that he's probably going to do a good job there. So I had a couple other point guards above Uzan, so I'm interested by that pick. But you know, can't argue with what you said about he had a extremely strong year for us, especially his first year in the program, especially the latter half of that first year in the program. He was unbelievable.
Yeah, I had him higher on my board than I probably would have expected before I started doing my prep for this segment, because I just had to. I mean, I know you focus on the most recent season kind of as an instinct, but I remembered how good he was as the point guard on the 24-25 team. And I think suffered's the wrong word, but I think you saw his efficacy as a player go down a bit when it was him and Kingston trying to do it. So yeah, no, I think that is a sneaky good pick there with probably the top 2 point guards off the board at this point. I am really laboring over this one, guys. I'm going to make a pick. Don't worry. I'm not going to lock up the show here, but
it's going to be like the NFL draft when you don't pick after like 10 minutes and the next person can draft and like Dustin's running to drop his paper. I'm like, we want him.
I have a guy that I'm running to draft. So I hope Sam doesn't return the favor that I just did to him with Josh Carlton a minute ago.
I love both these players, to be clear. They're both obviously we're still picking early enough that we're talking about the best of the best of the program still on the board here. I'm going with the sentimental pick, guys. I'm going with Rob Gray.
I knew you were going to take him. I was hoping he fell.
I won't say who my other pick was, but probably will be someone who's off the board very quickly. I have a lot of favorite Cougar players. It's almost hard to pick one, but what really stands out to me, like, Rob was an unbelievable scorer, and he was on the first team that was really good with Kevin Sampson. To me, he wasn't the only good player on that team. Obviously, it was a team effort, that 2017-2018 season. But if you ask me to word associate that 2017-2018 team, which will always have for the rest of my life a special place in my heart, because that was the first U of H men's basketball team, let's say, of our lifetime, because there might be a Pat Foster team like a year or two after I was born that was pretty good. But the first one of my true Cougar watching life that was really fucking good at basketball, and I'm always gonna, I guess, have Rob Gray as the association. I'm always gonna remember our first NCAA tournament win since Phi Slamma Jamma. Rob Gray putting that Cougar team on his back, scoring, I believe, 39 in Wichita, and just watching him just dice San Diego State over and over again. And it was just so obvious about halfway through that game. It's like, yeah, they're not stopping Rob Gray. Like, this is going to be Rob Gray willing U of H to win this basketball game. And as much as U of H has played more impactful postseason games since then, I still have goosebumps like on my arms, guys, like remembering being in the building in Wichita and seeing him have that drive to the basket with the ultimate game winner there with the closing seconds of that game. You know, that like there are objective cases you could make for guys that are still on the board here that I chose Rob Gray over, but no regrets here, guys. I'm filling out my guard group with Rob Gray. Really feeling good about Kingston Fleming's running the point and distributing to Quentin Grimes and Rob Gray.
Yeah, never going to argue with a Rob Gray pick, man. That guy has just the absolute locked down place in Cougar lore for as long as I'll be a Cougar fan at the very least, for sure.
Yep. Look, you can look at some of the other guards that have been around and go like, oh yeah, everyone we've mentioned ahead of him, but Buddy, when you go back and look at name some guys here in about 15 years when we're sitting around doing this again, and we're just remembering the days of the Cougar great ones, Rob Gray will be that. Oh my God, Rob Gray! Where somebody goes Rob Gray and everyone goes Rob Gray, like it will always be that.
All right, I'm excited because that was not the guy I was running to pick as much as I do love Rob Gray. Most only for positional reasons. Basically, I already have a combo guard in Marcus Sasser. Needed more of a rebounding wing. And to me, the next best player on the board at this point is also, coincidentally, a rebounding wing, and that is Damian Dotson. A guy that, again, maybe some of the fans who weren't around at the very beginning of the Sampson era, some of the younger fans might not remember. But, I mean, unbelievable all-around player. Over 17 points a game. Of every guard, any guard position, point guard, combo guard, rebounding guard, of any of the guards that I have on the board, highest effective field goal percentage at almost 60%, which is crazy for a guard. Also the highest defensive rebounding rate. And this is a Kevin Sampson team, man. You got to have at least one guard that is going to crash the boards. He is not content to just have his forwards. He expects his guards to pitch in on the boards. I don't know if any guard ever really did that better than Damian Dotson. Also, among all the guards on the board, the lowest turnover rate of any of them as well. So a guy who's going to take care of the ball. He's going to shoot efficiently. He's going to rebound. He basically just did everything right. I think because he never was on any of the teams. I think he left before he made the first tournament under Sampson. So
his graduating year was the season before we made the tournament. Yep.
Yeah. So, doesn't have that experience, but in terms of the guy who was on one of the weakest Kelvin Sampson teams, the one that did make the tournament, and still unbelievably efficient, still wasn't turning the ball over, trying to do too much. So really a guy who just did pretty much everything well, very high basketball IQ, someone who Kelvin Sampson still raves about. If you bring up Damian Dotson, I've noticed around him, he is very quick to go, oh man, yeah, some of the newer fans might not remember, but man, Damian Dotson was good. So very happy to complete my my backcourt with Jamal Shed, Marcus Sasser, and now Damian Dotson. And that brings me back around here. Oh, so y'all have more.
I was just going to say, I will always remember him. And this wasn't like a vintage UConn team, but I always remember, I think it was during his last season, him just torching UConn on the road for us to be first really good scorer to come to this program under Kevin Sampson. And yeah, we're worthy of a high pick.
And then my next pick, I got like I said, I got the 5. I got my full backcourt. And I think the best 4 still on the board. Doing a lot of doing some early Sampson era guys here, because my next pick is going to be Devin Davis at the 4. Really good scorer, really good rebounder. Another guy who I think really benefited from coming in this program and getting coached really hard. And, the version of him that we saw at the end of his career was just so much better than the one, when he first got here. And another guy who has, like I said, wasn't on some of these all-star teams, wasn't quite the high recruit of some guys still on the board like Jarris Walker and Chris Sinak, who I also thought about slotting one of those guys to the 4 here. But was just always really impressed with Devin Davis. And I think he's going to make a nice addition to my front court and complete my starting lineup.
Yeah, best big man in the program to that point. Really, I think until Josh Carlton and Fabian White's final seasons in college, I would say best all-around big man of the Sampson era. Very underrated part of that 2017-2018 team that I was talking about, that I have such just a soft spot in my heart for. So my remaining spot in my lineup here is the front court. And I'm laboring over this one as well, because there's a few guys I can go with here, because we don't have a strict like 4 versus 5. Then we decided we had enough restrictions on the roster as we were kind of building it here. I'm going with Jarris Walker.
Mm-hmm. You've already got JoJo who can play the 4 or the 5, so really I think you can add anybody here. And yeah, I think Jarris is a good pick.
Yeah, I think you have 4 unbelievably skilled scorers. Like Walker, as we saw during his one season at U of H, isn't going to demand a lot of the ball, which is probably good in a hypothetical lineup where you have guys like Grimes and Flemings and Rob Gray who are going to themselves chew up a lot of shots. But a guy who could score in a lot of different ways, good rebounder, a guy who, and we saw it, like he wasn't a volume 3-point shooter, but because you had on that team like Marcus Sasser, who's going to really, I think, demand the defensive attention beyond the line, that you saw Jarris Walker a lot of times really have good looks from deep and the ability to make them. So like having him as a scorer, like his ability to do the big man stuff as well. I think in a hypothetical front court, JoJo fits pretty well. So I'm going to fill up my starting lineup with Jarris Walker.
Yeah, Jarris was I would have loved to have seen what he did in like year 2 or 3 here, but I totally understand him not being a Houston Cougar for more than that. When you have that kind of money coming at you, you got to take it that possibility, that NBA money.
In the NIL era, maybe that goes a little bit differently. Maybe he at least thinks about it, but certainly at that time made all the sense in the world. And he was really the first guy that came through the Kevin Sampson U of H era, where it's just like you got this guy out of the high school, and it was like you knew this guy was one and done, and that was it. And it was worth it though, because he was a very very effective player even in his 1 year here.
All right, so that brings me. I could probably use a 3 here to complete the lineup, but I am actually gonna maybe go bench here and see what we do. LJ Cryer is still on the board, and just him being out there feels like somebody needs to take him. Like that just feels weird. Like
I was hoping he would fall to me, but I knew he wouldn't.
Yeah, like maybe you put him at the 1 and you move Sharp as a really undersized 3 there, but like it almost felt like you couldn't pass him up. You know, him still being there is very much I got to figure this out at a later time. I got to find a spot for LJ Cryer on the floor, even if it means I move somebody else to the bench, or LJ goes to the bench, something like that. I didn't expect him here, and when you guys kind of passed him up, I was like, I have to take
that was who I was laboring over taking with Rob. But now that he's off the board, I could say that it was LJ or Rob Gray when I was picking. It was tough not to pick LJ.
And so I'll figure the 3 out at some point during this. Because I'm also going to go with another guy who I just loved watching play basketball, and that's Deke Giroux. Just a fun guy to watch. Guy could just throw it down. I'll figure the 3 out somewhere along the way. I got a couple of rounds to figure that out. But Deke Giroux is just so much fun. I loved watching him play basketball. One of the most memorable moments in a U of H uniform that I've ever experienced, when he's yelling at his mom, after we make it to the Final Four, after the Cougs make it to the Final Four, and he's got that injured foot, and just once again, or the injured leg. I can't remember exactly what the injury was. I feel like it was foot for some reason, or ankle. But just one of those guys who I just loved watching play basketball, and he fits in like a Fabian White. I loved watching Deke. As I made the list and I was ranking everybody, like you guys said, he just felt like a guy that was probably ranked higher than he should be. But if you're not a Houston Cougar fan, it's hard to appreciate how much fun he was to watch.
One of my core memories, I traveled up to Cincy for the 2019 regular season finale. And if you'll remember that game, very close one. And then the final 10 minutes, U of H just ran Cincy off the court. And it was, I think I could be getting the numbers wrong. We were up at about 7 or 8 or something like that. And Cincy had this, it was a big possession. It's like, all right, if they get a 3 here, like it's starting to get a game again. The Cincy crowd, there's still a little bit of buzz in the building. And then bad pass. Deke just could not have timed it better. He is alone down the floor running towards the Cincy student section. He slams down a dunk, and you could hear a pin drop, and Deke, you're like, in the building. Mick Cronin calls a timeout, and you immediately saw afterwards, like, people around me started like getting up and heading for the exits. Like they knew it was done. And I know it's just like, it's one play in like one basketball game, but that's when I hear Deke, like it summons that memory. Guys, for our next pick,
I got for one little Deke. So this is one of the things that, like I said, I was looking at a lot of numbers to kind of try to like pull these guys apart here and try to rank them. Deke Giroux, his last season at U of H, was top 500 in the country in block rate.
Mm-hmm.
Dude was a point guard, was such a menace defensively that he was top 500, which there's 365 teams. That's basically like being someone's second best shot blocker at the point guard position, which is insane. That's not supposed to happen. But that was Deke Giroux.
Also, one of those 2021 NCAA tournament memories. I don't know what you said that prompted it. Him just absolutely putting the clamps on Buddy Boeheim, Syracuse's supposedly all-world scorer in that Sweet 16 win. Just absolutely shut his ass down. I can't believe my next pick is still on the board here. My bench point guard I'm going Galen Robinson Jr.,
Yeah.
the Godfather. And I said a lot of stuff, which I agree with about Rob Gray being, someone who really took this program out of the mud, somebody who I would associate with those early U of H teams and what they did. Galen, his senior season, part of the first team in ages to get to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament, was the first Houston area recruit that really bought into what Kevin Sampson was selling in this program. Started most of 4 years. I remember this game. This was a loss. His sophomore season, we played Arkansas at Fayetteville. I went up there with my dad, and we ended up losing that game. But if you'll remember that time, Arkansas was I think this was, sophomore season, was very press. And I just remember thinking before the game, not that Galen was a specific weakness, but just like, oh man, like 40 minutes of this might be really tough for this U of H team. And even though you lost the game, that was also, by the way, the game where Devin Davis, the freak injury where he cut his hand on the Arkansas rim there, was out for a decent chunk of that season after that. I remember watching in Fayetteville and Galen just effortlessly, they sent the press for the full 40 minutes of the game, and Galen just every time broke it. Really, really good point guard, really developed as a scorer too. Like that was his kind of, weakness his first 2 or 3 seasons, was just very pass first point guard, and whatever you got from him offensively was a bonus. And that developed nicely by the time he reached his senior season as well. So I think it's absurd luxury to have Kingston Flemings as my starting point and Galen on the bench. So I'm my first bench pick is going to be one Galen Robinson Jr.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad you picked him. I was definitely going to have to pick him if you didn't take him, because that's another guy. No way he should be on the board any longer than he was. And Jamal Shead and Galen Robinson, both guys who were kind of the point guard at the time. And again, I don't know how much those guys are going to coexist on the same court, because I feel like they kind of play the same role. But like we saw last year, Kingston Flemings can absolutely be on the court with another point guard. So with you having Rob Gray, Kingston Flemings, Galen Robinson in that backcourt, you can absolutely rotate those guys around. You can have Kingston and Galen on the same court at the same time. So I like the fit with your team a little better than mine, even though I would have absolutely had to jump on him if he was still available. But now with 2 picks here, and I've got my entire starting 5 in the can already. So I'm going to go ahead and take my first big man and my first guard off the bench. And my first big man off the bench, I'm taking Chris Sinak off of this past year's team. Just a guy who can, if we're only drafting one backup big man, can, kind of play the 4 or the 5. Obviously a little bit inconsistent as we saw this year, but an unbelievable rebounder, and, a guy who can stretch defenses with a shot, can do a lot of things really well. Gives me a lot of positional versatility in the front court there, whereas I think Josh Carlton is kind of locked in at the 5. Devin Davis kind of locked in at the 4, so I think gives me some flexibility there, and really liked him this past season. Another guy kind of in the Jarris Walker mode, where it would have been really, really cool to see him in year 2, but just a little bit too much talent. All you get is going to be 1 year for that guy. And then in terms of a guard off the bench, again, if we're only doing an 8-man rotation, you got to have a guy who can just kind of do a little bit of everything off of the bench for you here. And that's why I'm taking Nate Hinton, a guy who just, did everything you could ever want. A guy who spent some of his career as the 6-man off the bench and excelled in that role. Just really, really another insanely good rebounder. Best defensive rebounding rate. Him and Damian Dotson. I got that, I believe, statistically, at least the 2 best rebounding guards in the Kevin Sampson era. So excited about that. Guy who can play, the 2, can play the 3. Just another guy who just high basketball IQ. A guy who feels like one of the epitome of the Kevin Sampson era players, although there's like 20 guys that feel that way. But I guess that's kind of the definition of the culture that we always hear about. But yeah, Chris Sinak, Nate Hinton, my first 2 guys off the bench, feeling very good there.
Good picks. Nate Hinton was the top guy I had left on my board before you're picking. So didn't have much belief that he would get back to me, but I was hoping against hoping on that one, buddy. So I'm gonna add my second bench guard, a guy who I shouldn't be surprised that he's here, just because when you're talking about Kevin Sampson era U of H men's basketball, there are a lot of really good guards, and I don't believe anyone was taken in front of this guy incorrectly, but I'm going with Corey Davis Jr. Junkyard dog, big part of the 2 seasons he was here, the 17-18 and 18-19 seasons, your first 2 NCAA tournament teams, a guy who also, to me, really synonymous with those. One big moment, I remember his first season here, it was the Wichita State game at TSU. This was Wichita State's first season in the conference, and just like Landry Shamet, future pro on the team, the Connor Frankamp. I was trying to remember the balding guard there because he's significant to this story. I remember you and I were at that one, Dustin. I remember in the stands closest to our side, Corey Davis just absolutely getting his arms like around as they'd inbounded to him, but he didn't really have a plan of where he was going, Frankamp, and Corey Davis just like surrounding him. And Frankamp eventually has to frantically like do like the call a timeout because I can't possibly do anything here. And at that point, I think U of H had like taken a lead and was really starting to like take the game over. And Corey Davis just like yelling, and the crowd was like really, that was one of our first like really good crowds at TSU that season, being really into it. Like, he's the guy, you put him on the best guard, he's fine doing that, can shoot a three, can drive to the hole, reliable 3-point shoot or free throw shooter, late in the game. If you're in a situation where you're having to be, you're having to be fouled and you want someone who can go to the line reliably, put the two in the basket to keep you comfortably in the lead. Culture guy. One of those guys. I know I've gone, I think, reasonably heavy with earlier era Kevin Sampson U of H guys on this team. We've had some better teams since then, but I was really, really hoping that I could somehow get Corey Davis into my 8-man rotation here, and I'm excited to have absolutely done that.
I think in Corey Davis and Rob Gray, you really did a good job in cornering the market on guys who early on in the Kelvin Sampson era kind of proved that the Kelvin Sampson culture was not incompatible with being a little bit of like having a little bit of a bad attitude, having a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, being the kind of player that other teams,
junkyard dog,
that other teams hate, right? Other teams hated Rob Gray. Other teams hated Corey Davis because he was just so up in everyone's grill. He was just had such a back down from nobody attitude. Loved Corey Davis as a Coug and really liked the pick. He was my next highest combo guard for sure.
All right. Well, I think that comes to me, and I am going to pose the first question to the group if we will allow this as the 3. Okay. And this is Tremont Mark.
Yeah.
Guy
He's
who has been listed as a guard the entire time, but definitely fits kind of that wing more than anything. A guy I really liked when he was here. I think if he finishes his career here, he's considered one of the best Houston Cougars of all time. Who knows exactly what happened on the back end to cause that transfer, but he averaged 10 points a game and was just one of those guys that you just enjoyed watching, you thought was pretty good. And I think he's going to fit in great as a 3 here. So for me, I think Tremont Mark is, like I said, if he finishes his career as a Houston Cougar and doesn't transfer to Arkansas and then go to Texas, and you see, it's not like Texas was this really bad team or something like that where they were desperate. He went and played for an SEC, 2 SEC teams, and at Arkansas he averaged 16. And I know we're judging off what they did at U of H, but he wasn't some bad player who transferred out because he wasn't able to see the court or anything like that. So I'm going to go with Tremont Mark here as my 3, and to round out the starting 5.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I agree with you. If he finishes his career at U of H, he gets picked multiple rounds ago. He's not on the board for you right now. But even the U of H version of him, extremely good player. For all the things you said, I'll always remember him for the putback and one versus Rutgers that really saved our NCAA tournament. So a guy who could really make some big plays and some clutch moments, and also just did a lot of stuff well.
Yeah, just always had a clutch shot, even unfortunately for schools other than U of H later in his career. But regular season, I don't know so much, but just like a guy who had, I would say, 2 players worth of clutch postseason moments in his college career.
And then I'm going to go with my bench big, which is kind of hard to say. And I'm actually going to go with Reggie Chaney here. Just another guy who, when you see Wani and Fabian kind of get into a little bit of foul trouble, Reggie, you're not going to lose much with Reggie Chaney coming off. I would have loved to have grabbed somebody like a JoJo Tugler or Jarris Walker. I was kind of hoping Jarris kind of fell a little bit, but I also wasn't stupid and knew that was going to happen. There's some other guys who I think are great candidates here for that, but Reggie Chaney, just again, a guy I enjoyed watching play basketball.
Yeah, R.I.P. Reggie Chaney. Obviously was a pleasure to watch him. And he, if you're going to plot the numbers, the points per game, it's not going to, his pick isn't going to show up as high as some of the other guys we've got here. But in terms of just toughness, I mean, if this was a toughness rankings, he's the first overall pick, I think.
Yeah.
Who absolutely was, just heart and soul of the team while he was here. And, obviously miss him and wish he was still coming back and going to games and getting the applause he deserves for all the good work that he did here.
No doubt. So for my bench big, I have a few candidates here, but I tried to think like who could replicate what I'm getting from JoJo in my starting 5 spot with the shot blocking and the offensive rebounding and going Chris Harris Jr. Like it is easy to forget because the season I ended kind of in a way, no season in our lifetimes and hopefully none subsequently it ended, that you never got to see, because Chris Harris's senior season, which was the 2019-20 season, really had a breakout year. Like that might be Sampson's best offensive rebounding team that season, and there's no bigger reason for that than Chris Harris. Unbelievable shot blocker as well, that was always evident in his game, but you finally got to see him in that last season of the program really put stuff together a bit more. He was never your go-to guy offensively. He's gonna be, when he's on the floor, your 5th offensive option, and it's a pretty far distance from 4 to 5 on that list. But I feel like he can replicate what JoJo gives you when inevitably, sorry JoJo, gets into a little foul trouble, and then you alternate between, all right, Chris Harris maybe gets into a little foul trouble here, you go back to JoJo, but that you could potentially have 2 elite offensive rebounders and shot blockers on the floor, potentially for you, even with one of them on the bench, is why I had to go with Big Chris here for my final pick to fill up my lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got the 2 best shot blockers in the U of H era in Chris Harris and JoJo Tugler. I wasn't sure if you're going Chris Harris or Javier Francis there. I think
he was the other one that I was really having a hard time not picking. I love Javier, and that's one of those unbelievable luxuries of that team is that you had Javier as a bench big. But I'm going with Chris.
Yeah, but I think something you said there, one of the really cool development stories we've seen under Kevin Sampson is Chris Harris going from an elite shot blocker to an elite defender, right? He came in on campus, he was an elite shot blocker, but he would just jumped at everything. He didn't have the defensive positioning. And you saw by the end of his career, he wasn't just a shot blocker. He was someone who was fantastic all around defensive player. And that included still being an insanely good shot blocker. I believe his block rate his senior year was like number 2 in the country. So really, really good guy. This is a lot of pressure because I have now the last pick of the draft here. And I'm looking at everyone on here and going, man, if I don't pick any of these guys, they're not getting picked. And that is a little bit intimidating here, given the quality of guys we've got on the board here. But ultimately, there's one guy who, more than any other, I don't think I can leave undrafted, and that is Kyler Edwards. Needed another backup guard, another guy he's a good rebounder on the wing, but he could be a distributor as well, could score, good defender. Only 1 year here after his career at Texas Tech. I ended up picking a couple of those guys, the 1 year guys, but yeah, he was so good, such a good all-around player, and needing another backup guard, even though I can't believe we're leaving Armani Brooks and Tajay Moore and Gerard Stiggers like undrafted after all this, Terrence Arsenault, but yeah, just as much as any of those guys could have filled out my roster and been another great guard off of the bench here, Kyler Edwards was my final pick to close out the draft here.
Yeah, I think if we had no roster restrictions, or if we go like 4 guards and you don't have to have a big man on your bench or something like that. Yeah, especially Armani Brooks. That's the one, Armani Brooks. Like that was a really difficult one for me. Like when I was making the Corey Davis pick, that was just like, but you have an elite 3-point shooter there, like an Armani Brooks. Like, why are you not taking Armani Brooks? Like that and also like a great development story there as well, coming as an unheralded guy.
Yeah. All right.
I was gonna say, you kind of touched on it, Dustin. Who's the one? I'll pose this question to you both. Who's the one player who you couldn't make fit into your 8, who didn't get drafted, who you're just like, oh man, like I can't believe I couldn't get this guy onto my team?
Man, I have like another 8-guy team that I would draft. Like, I can't believe we didn't draft this guy. I mean, less so at point guard. I think we kind of got all. I think your maybe your one remaining point guard would be like LJ Rose, I guess. Ronnie Johnson, maybe. Like I said, Gerard Stiggers, Caleb Mills, the guy only spent 1 year, but insanely talented on the wing. Yeah, Armani Brooks, Tajay Moore, Terrence Arsenault. Devontae Pollard was a guy I really thought was going to get drafted somewhere at some point. If you need, the guy who scored 14 points a game, one of our best scoring, I think, more points per game than any other forward we've had under Kevin Sampson, actually, believe it or not. Didn't get picked. Javier Francis. Justin Gorham was another guy I really thought should be on a roster somewhere, but yeah, you could put it together. We picked 3 really good teams, and you could pick another entire other one off of what's left here.
And for me, there is outside of everyone Dustin just named, because I have all those guys as well, but somebody who is in the all-name Hall of Fame, Dan Chicken Knowles played for
Chicken
Kevin Sampson. So when you think about like when again you mentioned some guys, Dustin threw his head back, Sam smiled because you just remember the name Chicken Knowles, baby. So that was like, I went back and I was like, did he play for Sampson? And I went back and I was like, he did.
He was like, I want to say he was our one notable holdover after we let go Dickey and brought in Sampson.
Yep. I'm gonna throw another name at you guys just for giggles. Breon Brady.
Yep.
Another guy who was on my center list if we went a little bit further down.
The most victimized man by college basketball referees.
For real.
Yes.
For real.
But also by his head coach, because there was about a year or two where all you heard from the bench off the side mics was Breon. We've seen Sampson get after some guys. I haven't seen anyone drive Sampson as crazy as Breon Brady did, but also you could tell when he did the right thing. It was just Sampson the guy who was responsible for Sampson removing his tie the most for a few years was without a doubt Breon Brady.
Breon picking up his second foul 4 minutes into a game, and you just see Sampson just rip the red tie off him. The one guy who we haven't mentioned here that I really wanted to find a spot for it and just could, Malik Wilson, just unbelievably important player off of the team that's gotten closest to winning it all. I don't think it's too much to say that if that 24-25 team, which already, because I'm not going to say didn't have the strongest bench. We'll say didn't have the deepest bench that season. If you didn't have Malik in some of those key games that you won, I think it's fair to say you remove Malik Wilson from this equation and replace him with a notably worse player, that we're not talking about a team that made the deep run that they did 2 seasons ago.
Yeah.
I'll give you one more fun one that I don't know necessarily you'd be like, oh yeah, that guy was a...
We're naming some guys, and that's okay. That's what we expect you to do
Name
here.
some guys.
Mikhail McLean.
Okay.
A guy who just a name I remember, I was going through the roster and I was like, oh yeah, there's a guy.
The highest advanced coach of any guy in this era.
Yeah, but he wasn't somebody who I was like, I'm going to draft, but that was a name with Chicken that I came across and I was like, oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I'm glad another culture guy we could mention here, Ramon Walker. Again, just didn't quite have the production to get on a team, but in terms of a culture guy who does everything right, helps you win. I'm glad you mentioned Malik Wilson, Sam. He was one of the last names. Another culture guy from early on that gets forgotten, I think LaRon Barnes was a guy who I as I was going through, I kind of started from the beginning of the Kelvin Sampson era, and I was like, oh, maybe I can find. And then just too many other guards. I'm like, okay, you're not getting drafted, LaRon Barnes, but I still have mad respect for you. And then one guy, I can't believe we've gone this far. This is the last guy on any of my boards, and then I'll be done naming some guys. Wes Van Buckets.
Yep.
How about Wes Van Beck? What a good player for U of H. Again, I got so excited about Wes Van Beck as I was doing my my notes for this, putting my board together. I had to go on this whole rant to my wife about, you don't understand how good Wes Van Beck was. This was back when we had walk-ons. He was a walk-on, and very, very stereotypically, he was the one white guy, but then he had no skills whatsoever, but other than that, if you left him open for three, he was going to fucking drain it. And then all of a sudden, by his junior year, dude could actually guard reasonably well. Guy could actually handle the ball reasonably well. Guy saved us in that one ECU game when the entire team was sleepwalking, trying to lose to ECU, and Wes Van Beck was just how the fuck you, I'm not letting us lose this game moment. Something none of us thought Wes Van Beck was ever going to have. So, really enjoyed doing this with you guys. And it's just has made me realize, even with a renewed sense, how lucky we are to be U of H fans for the past Kelvin and the current and ongoing, in fact, Kelvin Sampson era, and what a joy that's been. And you know what, as much as it's easy to focus on, have we won the Natty yet? Have we won the Natty yet? Is this the year we're going to win the Natty? Yes or no? Again, just looking at all these names and realizing how lucky we were to cheer for all these guys is I think puts it into perspective.
Agreed.
As much fun as I expected to do this, actually getting to talk through this with you guys was like 10 times as fun as I expected.
Yeah.
I was already like as excited this episode as I've been in a good long while.
All right, so we'll run through, name our entire teams here so we can leave the listeners with our full team and they can decide if they want to sound off on social media or on the Patreon or in the email, whatever it is, who has the best team.
Yeah.
So I'll go here. So my starting point guard, Jamal Shed. Starting 2 guard, Marcus Sasser. Starting 3, Damian Dotson. A front court of Josh Carlton and Devin Davis. And then a backup, my bench of Nate Hinton, Kyler Edwards, and Chris Sanak.
I'll go next for the draft order. My starting point guard is Kingston Flemings. Starting 2 guard, Rob Gray. My starting 3, Quentin Grimes. And my front court guys were Jarris Walker and JoJo Tugler with a bench of Galen Robinson Jr., Corey Davis Jr., and Chris Harris is my bench big man.
All right, and I have Milo Suzanne as my 1, Emmanuel Sharp as my shooting guard. My 3 is going to be Tremont Mark. My 4, my big men will be Fabian White and Wani Roberts. And then coming off the bench, I will have LJ Cryer and Reggie Chaney.
And Dickie Giroux.
Oh, yeah, and Dickie Giroux. I can't believe I forgot to write down Dickie Giroux there. So, yes, thank you. I was like, wait a minute, who am I forgetting? As
7
I'm like
guys.
going through the list, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that's 7. I can do math. No, and yeah, Dickie Giroux coming off the bench as well. So, again, that's Milos, Emmanuel, Tremont Mark, Fabian White, Wani Roberts, LJ Cryer, Reggie Chaney, and Dickie Giroux.
Great fun, guys. Bobby, take us home.
Yeah, so that is it. Again, with Dustin on the call, feels like I'm doing this in front of the Godfather, but he always seems to approve. But we want to thank you guys so much. We hope you, genuinely, we hope you guys have enjoyed this off-season stuff that we've done. It's been really fun coming up with some creative things to talk about, the points and this one and the Q&A. It's been a lot of fun. Going out of our normal kind of comfort zone here, want to thank Dustin for joining a couple of those, submitting a question last week for the Q&A. We truly appreciate you guys who listen. We hope you enjoy it as much as we enjoy doing it for you guys. And even if it's Sam and I doing this to see each other every week and just say hey to our friend, it's a ton of fun. We hope you guys enjoy it as well. But if you have any feedback for us, we would absolutely love to hear it. You can find us on social media, on Twitter at SH Podcast. You can find us on Blue Sky at podcast.bsky.social. You can email us if you've sworn off social media. You can email us at shpodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to throw a little money our way, we would always appreciate that. For as little as $5 a month, you can get some cool premium content. We got some good stuff planned for this upcoming season, instant reacts, things like that. So you can find us there, patreon.com/shpodcast. It'll cost you as little as $5 a month. If you want to have your name across the top of this podcast and you want to be you want this to be the Monster Energy Scott Holman podcast, we will gladly do that for the right price. And I will tell you, we are cheap. But in all seriousness, we want to thank you guys so much for listening. And as we always say, gentlemen,
go Cougs.
All right. Go Cougs. Let's go.